Yeah, let's bring in Peter Doran right now, adjunct senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Peter, appreciate you joining us this morning. First off, I'm going to ask you what everyone is wondering this morning. How in the world do you start off this meeting for peace? That's what everyone wants, right? Peace. Hours after Ukraine military launched 337 drones on parts of Russia.
That's a great question, but let's remember why Ukraine has just done this. Over the weekend and into last week, Russia launched an unprecedented attack of cruise missiles, Iskander ballistic missiles, and kamikaze drones at Ukrainian civilians and civilian infrastructure. So Ukraine's counter response here is just to show they still have fangs. They're still in this fight. Obviously, the administration wants to get to a ceasefire and a peace agreement. But here's the problem. Secretary Rubio said on his flight to Saudi Arabia just yesterday, the United States does not at this point know precisely what Ukraine is prepared to give up in exchange for peace, and the same goes for Russia. So this is more of an exploratory discussion in Saudi Arabia today to find out precisely what the Ukrainians are willing to give up and what their red lines are.
A lot of people are asking, Peter, why should they give up anything? They didn't start the war. They're just trying to defend themselves. And going back to what you said, it's the bully in the principal's office. And Marco Rubio seems to be playing the principal today. Well, he did it. Well, he pushed me back. Well, they did that. It seems very middle schoolish. Of course, it's not. Lives are at stake here. Millions of people have been killed. So if you're Marco Rubio, what are you saying and doing in the meeting today?
Well, Rubio has made America's negotiating position clear. The line of battle is basically stagnant. Both sides have essentially exhausted their offensive military capability. So we do find ourselves in a bit of a quagmire right now. Now, it's important to stress here, the Trump administration has made a curious play. It has cut Ukraine off from the intelligence that we were providing, intelligence that allowed Ukraine to interdict Russian missiles and kamikaze drones to protect its civilians. President Trump has cut them off from that intelligence. That is a power move against the Ukrainians. At the same time, we have not taken any aggressive steps so far to increase sanctions or economic pressure on Russia. So right now, the game of hardball is only being applied to the Ukrainians. That said, this effort is, as the administration declares, its attempt to force the Ukrainians to deal seriously in terms of peace negotiations. We have yet to see that same act applied to Moscow.
Yeah, that's very confusing to everyone, Peter. What do you think? We know that Vladimir Putin's not going to sit there and just take these drone attacks overnight and say, all right, you know what, we did it over the weekend, so they had to get back to us. No big deal. All right, we'll take that. Something's going to happen. And so I guess what does it matter what comes out of this meeting today in Saudi Arabia between the U.S. and Ukraine? Because we all believe Putin's going to react to this.
Well, I think the Ukrainians are in a much more open position to negotiating for peace at this point. President Zelensky has stated, look, let's start with a ceasefire in the air and at the sea. That will at least stop the missiles and kamikaze drones from flying in either direction. The Ukrainians seem poised to accept that as a sign of good faith and to see if the Russians break their side of that agreement. So that's a small step. You need small steps like this. Secretary Rubio has stressed this is a process. But now I would focus on President Trump. Recall, on Friday, he got very upset that the Russians were launching missiles at the Ukrainians. He took to Truth Social and he said, if Vladimir Putin doesn't stop this, if he doesn't come and talk seriously about peace, I will increase the economic pain on Russia. I wrote in The Hill just yesterday, this is a turnkey approach to do just that, increase the economic pain. So all eyes really must now focus on what President Trump does to ratchet up the economic pressure through sanctions and other means on Russia to force Russia to negotiate as much as the Ukrainians are in Saudi Arabia.
But, Peter, at the same time, he also took some of that military aid away from Ukraine. So it seems as if it changes all the time. Peter Doran, we appreciate you joining us. Thank you so much. Fanchon?